Hey, you awful bunch of otters. I know they don't start with the same letter, it's fine. Look, this episode of Death by Monsters, hello, welcome, I'm glad you're here, but I just want to give you a slight trigger warning at the start of this show. This show is going to feature some, not loads, but some references to child abuse. So I would just like to give you a heads up. If that's something that's going to make this episode unlistenable for you, then I totally appreciate it, and I appreciate you for giving us a chance. You can always catch up on our old episodes or wait until next week. But until then, on with the show, I guess.
It's Death by Monsters.
Welcome, hello, welcome, you spooky skunks.
Spooky skunks? I love skunks. Is that weird?
I am nervous about skunks. I'm nervous about them.
That's fair. I weirdly like the smell of skunks. Is that weird?
Wait, yes. What?
On a country road in the distance?
Exactly.
No, I'm getting you.
That's what it's very nostalgic because my dad lives up in the foothills in California, so like 2 hours away from my mom, and we used to have to travel there a couple times a week because my parents divorced, so we live with both of them. And so we'd smell that smell like every single time we went driving because we're up
Northern California?
Yeah, Northern California.
That's weed you're smelling, son. That's where they grow that.
It's a lot of weed. And so I have a weird nostalgic smell for skunk. I don't want it on me, but yeah. Hi, everybody.
You know, this is sort of like that. So I have a weird nostalgic sense for a very specific cigarette smell. And I think it must be the brand of cigarette that my nanny smoked. I think is the one that, because it's not every cigarette smoke smell.
Okay. Interesting.
That like makes me feel like, aw, but occasionally I'll get a whiff of a very specific kind and I'll be like, huh. And I think it must be the brand that my nanny smoked. So sort of the same.
Well,
that's fair. That's fair.
On a side note, this is Death by Monsters, the show about monsters, mysteries, of the unknown.
You skunks.
We're so on topic.
I'm joined, as is my preference, by Paula Deming.
Oh, dear.
So your preference is her. Good to know. Thank you.
And Nick Galaxy Strats Murphy.
I got them galaxy strats.
How come Nick got galaxy strats and I'm just, oh, dear.
Because you say, oh, dear, a lot.
I guess
You
I
say
do.
it sometimes.
And I also say galaxy strats a lot.
Wait, Matthew, what is your intro? And I'm Matthew, whatever, Jude. And I'm Matthew, big time Jude.
I've just written, I'm Matthew Jude. So I'm currently sat in my friend's house. They lived in what I colloquially describe as the arse end of nowhere, out in that good old Tennessee country.
Yeah.
There's a porch with rocking chairs. I spend a lot of the day drinking coffee and cuddling with two of my favourite dogs in the world.
Fair.
And what could be more backwoods, byway Tennessee than expelling a witch demon from the bowels of hell that's killed before?
That is what's interesting. This one has killed before.
Oh, yeah, some say.
Well, I have some thoughts on
I agree.
that supposed death. But we can get to that when we get to it because I'm going to be really good. I'm trying not to anticipate anything Matthew's going to say until he says it.
It's almost the whole point of the podcast, though, that you do that. That's the thing. Because down the road from me, not so far a ways, you get to a little town called Adams, Tennessee.
Adams.
And everyone around these parts has heard that name. And though Adams, Tennessee, in many ways, is just like any other old town America, it's not famous for dipping dots or inventing a new way to ingest high fructose corn syrup.
I mean, it's not Gatlinburg.
It's not some big city living like Gatlinburg.
It's famous for something rather more demonic, more devilish, and more tantalizingly evil. And that's the Bell Witch.
Bell Witch, Bell Witch, Bell Witch, Bell Witch, Bell Witch.
For this episode, I'll be taking a lot from the book The Bell Witch Exposed by Camille Moffat, which was really helpful, and the 1894 authenticated history of the famous Bell Witch by M.V. Ingram.
Ooh.
The Red Book, as it is known, includes eyewitness accounts from the Bell family, and it was only published once all of John Bell's closest family had died.
Yeah, that's right, because you got to wait for them all to be gone so that you can write your book and no one's going to get mad at you for it. None of the living people can be like, hey, actually, that's not how that happened. You can write whatever you want when all the people who are involved are dead.
One of my favourite authors is Thomas Wolfe. He wrote a book called Look Homeward Angel, and it's essentially about Asheville,
North Carolina.
yeah. And he
Yes.
wrote this book, and it
A
came out.
lovely city.
It's a great place, you know, if you want some tie-dyed kind of those weird, like, baggy things. So what happens?
Or if you want to go to the Biltmore.
You can't beat the Biltmore, not on a Friday night. So I don't know what that is. And so he went back. To his hometown and found out that because it was like basically a Roman clef, everything was the same, but all the names had been changed. People did not like him anymore in his hometown because he was very honest about it all.
That's why you got to wait for your whole hometown to die before you write the expose.
That's true. I also want to preface this tale of witchery and evil by saying that Ingram's book, while valuable, is both of its time and, for lack of a better platitude, was published with the consent of the Bell family, and I feel spins a rather favourable portrait of the Bells as a whole.
Is that right?
To put it lightly, these hard-working Christian homesteaders were slave owners. And so, even though by the law of and the general moral compass of society at the time, fuck them.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. I'm like, fuck all these people. I don't care what anyone says.
I'll just read this passage to help illustrate that point. Quote, John Bell made it a rule to owe no man. He paid as he went and accumulated rapidly from his farm by economy and by management. He was always forehanded by having money before time and was accommodating to his neighbours. He was as firm in his convictions as he was dignified in character and generous in hospitality. He was a tower of strength in the community. No family name had a stronger impress on that county.
Wait, so did he write this? Did he pay someone to write this book?
I don't know, but I'll add in the passage from literally one page before in Ingram's book. John Williams, that is John Bell's father-in-law, approved the match and gave his daughter a young Negro woman called Chloe and her child named Dean.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck 'em.
That sentence is so freaking terrible.
So once again, to be very and unrelentingly clear, these people, and by that I mean the Bell family, were slave owners.
Yeah.
And I believe that, even at the time, the common thread of human decency, the faint glimmer of empathy, and the dwindling and dimming light of compassion would have told you, in some fleeting moment, that owning a person was wrong. So fuck 'em.
Yep.
And with that, we can continue with the story. But I did want to bring it up.
So it's more like when we did the Dyatlov Pass, we're like, okay, let's make sure we treat these, like, make sure we're not making fun of, like, the dead and stuff like that. But the Bells, fuck them. Let's make fun of them a ton.
Some of the Bells I feel more sympathy towards than the others, but I don't have any sympathy for John Bell.
I mean, here's the thing, Matthew. Can we just go ahead and assume the Bells lived at Bell End?
They would have.
Like Bag End, you know?
Big time.
Bit of British humor from the American side of this podcast.
Thank you for that. The Bell Witch tale is arguably the most classic tale of haunted goings-on in America, and in many ways acts as the cornerstone to many of the stories that came after. Native burial grounds, haunted woods, such as described in my least favourite ghost story of all time, the Amityville Haunting. But while it's true that in many ways the Bell Witch started it all, it's certainly not the first ghost story. There is so much talk about the Bell Witch, the fact that, in many accounts, the witch has a name, Kate, named perhaps that it was thought that it was Kate Batts was the reason for the haunting. And this is the whole thing about a land dispute and family quarrels. Kate was also Lucy Bell's niece. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And the classic witch story, which is, of course, a woman did it. But for this episode of Death by Monsters, I'm going to concentrate on the events as they are known to have happened with the Bell family.
Watch out. I might get accused of witchcraft at any moment, by the way. So, being the woman on this podcast.
The chance of you not getting a devil baby? Slim to none.
It's slim. That's what, you know what? That's probably why I'm not going to have any babies, because it's probably going to be a devil, and then I'll probably get thrown in the river.
I just don't think you want to take that kind of risk. And while it's true that John Bell may have originally moved to escape persecution from the church of which he was excommunicated, or even the fact that it is thought that he killed a man in North Carolina, there is so much to this haunting, so much the folklore of this story, that I could talk all day about it.
Whoa. He got excommunicated?
Yeah.
Do you know what he did to get excommunicated?
I believe he was a general dick.
I love the idea of the church being like, you know what? We just kind of don't like your attitude, so bye.
How about fuck off now? Thank you. Off you go, John. Take you and your whole family.
Just, you know what? How about you go to a completely different state?
Well, the thing is not only did he go to a different state, he went to, at that point, the end of the United States.
That's a good point.
It was basically the western frontier, Tennessee at the time.
Just go into those mountains, just hole up in there.
The Appalachians.
That's right. Good job remembering how to say it.
One last note to make before going into this story is that the current owners of the land are the Kirbys, and let me tell you, they are very, very adamant that they are not alone. That the cave on the land is home to spirits and evil, with their own ghostly tale of terror and destiny. But for now, I'll just tell you the classic tale of the Bell Witch.
Yeah, I'm ready to hear a spooky story.
The classic Bell Witch story, if there is such a thing, as often is the case with these folklore things, gets twisted and misremembered, gilded and embellished, starts with old man John Bell. John Bell and Lucy Williams go ahead and get married in 1782 when little Lucy was 12, as was the style at the time.
Gross. This isn't like Romeo and Juliet times, which even then, they're awfully young. But like, yeah, anyway, I got some issues with that, but that's all right. We don't have to harp on it. Like, has she, honestly, at 12 years old, she probably, at that time, there's not a bunch of hormones in her food. Let's be real. She probably hasn't even gotten her period yet. So, like, what the F?
As was the style at the time. Which doesn't make it okay.
Yes.
They go and start a family in 1790, which is, I checked, just long enough, I think. And John, on his little farm in North Carolina, makes a good living, owns a couple slaves, learns to be a cooper, and makes hogsheads, which are those big-ass barrels for tobacco and the like. But after 20 years, North Carolina life wasn't all that he wanted. So off to Robinson County, Tennessee they go. And in 1804, a wagon train of up to 11 families up and roll out west, settling down at Adams Station.
I left North Carolina. I didn't go to Tennessee, though. You know what? That sounds like I don't like these places. I have a real soft spot in my heart for the Southeast, especially that particular area of it. You know, North Carolina, Tennessee, the good old mountain kind of sections of them.
If you're leaving North Carolina for a new life, go further than Tennessee, is what I'm saying.
Tennessee's not that different.
Here's the metric for you, and I'll explain this to everyone that's listening as well. If you can still buy boiled peanuts, you haven't gone far enough.
If you still can't get alcohol on Sunday, you haven't gone far enough. Sorry, I was going to say, I feel like at this point, Matthew needs to come in with some banjo music and say, hey, everyone, if you're hearing this right now, I just thought it was a good moment to come in and say, we've been having some technical issues on recording this, and some people on this podcast might think it's because of the Bell Witch curse.
Ooh, I think it's her.
You really? I mean, I'm pretty...
No, I certainly fucking don't.
Hey, you are near this cursed area. You are like down the road from this right now, right? So
I could walk there from here.
Have you
stolen any rocks from the cave?
The wrath of the Bell Witch. You have done something.
Just me being here. No one likes me here,
presence.
Really. I mean, it's not your place. Your place is California.
Amen.
California. Okay.
It was on this trip. It was on this trip that in many ways the tone was set for what life had in store with them, and that was because on the way they witnessed those Brown Mountain lights that we keep on going on about.
The Brown Mountain lights.
Brown Mountain lights, girl. It's a Wendy's.
It's just a Wendy's on the horizon.
Back in the 1800s. That's where they started.
They set up homestead in a big fancy house, and together John and Lucy Bell, along with their children, Deep Breath, Jesse, John Jr., Drury, Benjamin, Esther, Zadok, Betsy, Richard, and Joe.
Wait, go fast.
Zadok. That's going on my baby name list for sure. Especially the demon baby.
Zadok already sounds like a demon.
Right?
I like it.
Zadok, the seventh demon of,
I love how they just got bored and tired in the middle of all their children having. They're just like, just name this one Zadok. Something dope like that.
They all lived a calm and prosperous life along the banks of the Red River, a river named for a bloody battle fought between the Cherokee and the Choctaw.
The Choctaws. I love the Choctaws. Okay, keep going.
It's a peaceful life for the most part, as described by Ingram, who says, the people of the Bell neighborhood were about equally divided in church affiliations, both Baptist and Methodist, but toleration, Christian fellowship, and a spirit countries, I don't know what that word even is,
spirit
of
countries?
Emulation prevailed. Like all of the counties, though, the settlement became infested with robbers and horse thieves, and it was almost impossible for anyone to keep a good horse.
Oh my gosh, I wonder if that's where my family ended up. Okay, hear me out. We have this story that some people on the Scotch-Irish side of my family got run out of a location and had to go more Midwest because they were horse thieves.
Ooh.
Well, you're not going to like this next paragraph then, because
And the Scottish and Irish ended up in like the Appalachian Mountains. We can go into like dialect stuff, but that's one reason why the mountain dialect sounds the way it does is because it's kind of a bastardization of the Scottish.
And that's why they're all like, hello, we're from the mountains.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Anyway, so we're talking about my family. Tell me more about my family, Matthew.
essentially the story starts off pretty much that they're in the town form of vigilante militia, just to quote, ferret out crime, where they took the thieves out into the forest and swamps past Sandersville, strung them up to the limbs of the trees, and then whipped them from head to foot with keen switches before setting them free and letting them go with a warning.
Did they make them choose their own switches? They probably did.
Oh, that's the worst. It's like making them dig their own grave. So Estabel, the oldest daughter, goes off and marries a local man, Bennett Porter, and not long after this, things start to get a little bit spooky. In 1817, John Bell was out and about doing whatever the hell he did. We saw this beast sitting between two rows of corn. The beast was staring and stalking him from a distance and appeared to be some sort of giant dog. But as John got closer and closer, it became clear that this creature was some type he'd never seen before. Though, of course,
Jersey Devil.
the thing is, it's 1887, so it could have just been an ostrich. I mean, there's lots of animals he's probably never seen before.
True.
Are there ostriches
In Tennessee?
the Tennessee mountains?
Lousy with ostriches.
Can't move for ostriches and emus.
That's where they're from originally.
You'd think they were from Austria, but they're not.
That's what that battle between the Choctaw and the Cherokee was.
I think we got a lot of mixed up facts going on right here, but
I don't think so. I don't think we do. Days later, Drew Bell also saw a large unexplained creature, though he at first thought it might have been some kind of big turkey. But as he got closer, stopping first to get his rifle, he saw that it was no turkey he'd ever seen before, and instead some type of incredibly giant bird. Maybe even a thunderbird of some variety, which is a creature for another day.
Wait, so there was some kind of weird dog beast and a bird?
Maybe it was a dog beast bird. Who knows?
Well, also, here's why I call BS on this story already. Is because this guy was like, it was a giant dog with a rabbit's face. I'm like, so the cutest animal that's ever existed? You would not be afraid of this thing. You would cuddle it, take it home, and introduce it to your wife, your kids, your pigs, your
It was
cows.
half kiwi, half koala. I didn't know whether to cuddle it or snuggle up with it.
Exactly. I'm sorry, that is not scary. They even had like a little picture of it. I was like, that looks cute. I'd keep it.
Next, we have little Betsy Bell, who I'll say is not going to have a good time during this story.
Betsy
she
Bell, what a great name. What a great Southern name.
My name is
Betsy
Betsy
Bell.
Bell. Yeah.
You know what? Have you all heard about what happened with Betsy Bell? Bless her heart. She triggered a real haunting.
Well, we don't talk about her brother. Which one? Zadok Bell.
Zadok.
Hi, my name's Betsy Bell. This is my brother. What's your name, son?
Zadok.
Zadok. My name is Zadok. You're like, oh, yeah, okay. We don't trust this guy over here. This guy's stealing all the horses? Yeah, it checks out.
She was taking a walk when she saw what she describes as a pretty young girl dressed in a green dress sitting high up in a tree. Only when she got closer, the girl in the dress vanished.
What? Oh, my God.
Ooh, creepy.
It is creepy. This is when the Bell Witch appears. It's a dim, skyless night, and as midnight came and went across the Bell homestead, the Bell sons were all woken to the sound of rats gnawing at their bed frames. But as they jumped up to light a lamp, nothing, not even a mouse or a rat, as would have made more sense at the end of that sentence. This gnawing and gnashing of teeth would last for weeks and soon spilled over to the other rooms of the house. These noises would bring screaming from Betsy as the gnawing turned into scratching, the scratching turned into banging.
No. I have a sense of maturity. Please, come on.
Well, here's the thing. They were down there in Tennessee. We can start scratching, turn into banging. You know how it goes.
Where was I? Banging all through the house, yes. Can we have please a bit of maturity among this? Paula?
You got to christen every room.
Let's go back to the banging. Talk about that.
Not that kind of podcast.
After a good long while and many long days of searching through the house and property, after tiresome and raucous nights of snarling and snapping teeth and claws, they began. Let's try and keep this together. They began to. They began to learn to live with the strangeness around them. which was a hell of a mistake. This is when their bed sheets and blankets begin to be ripped right from their beds, followed by the sound of gulping and choking, all the sounds of chains dragging across the hard wooden floors.
Hold it together.
Other nights sounded like a pack of wild animals tearing each other apart throughout the house. And finally, as the family prayed and screaming, demanded to know what was happening to the poor, terrible Bell family, out of the darkness, all that could be heard was the maddening sound of laughter.
Like that?
Yeah.
Well, this is the problem when you name your kid Zadok.
That's true. I blame Zadok. He's the one banging and scratching and gulping and choking.
Dressing in chains.
Those aren't my words. Those aren't my words. I just want to put that out there. Those aren't my
They
words.
begin, as you'd expect, to try and sleep during the day so that they could be up in the night. That also sounds a bit too sexy for this podcast. But this is when things get physical.
Wait, did you say, as you'd expect, they just went full on night shift? I don't think that's what, is that what I would do? I don't know.
Well, I think if the house was being a raucous haunting all night, I'd try and get some sleep during the day at least.
Okay, good point. Move on.
I get it. I understand, like, the whole, like, let's sleep during the day so we can try and figure out what's going on at night. I get that.
I don't know when they're getting any choring done. I don't know when they're baling any hay, if they're all being up all night.
Yeah, this is when their whole livelihood starts to fall apart.
Exactly. But this is when things get physical, but not so much in a sexy way, but more in, as they put it themselves, hair twisting forced them to jerk violently in the night.
Damn, that's sexy. This is a sexy-ass story.
It's a very sexy story. It takes a year for the Bells to break their silence about the presences that were living with them in their home. Each night, the house would shake like earthquakes, and the crazy could be seen all the way down the road.
What does that mean?
Wait. So, like, people saw, there were, like, witnesses who were like, something weird's going on at that house.
I feel like if you just walk past the Bell house, everyone's just screaming all night. It's a very small town.
Yeah, and also, and maybe you'll get to this, but, like, do they talk about why they kept it secret for, like, a year?
I have some thoughts. I'm not going to say what any of my thoughts are because Matthew will probably cover them much better than I could, but I feel like there's probably some stigma, especially in a religious community, maybe.
That's not coming up. That's a very good point. I like that point.
Oh, well, great. Well, hey, I guess I'm here for a reason.
No one wants a DA-man, you know?
They turned to their neighbours eventually, and though I appreciate this was a different time, if someone comes knocking at your door to tell you that their lives are being ruined by some non-corporeal and unknown entity that seems bent on creating a living hell, say no.
Hi, neighbor. I just was wondering if you had, like a cup of sugar I could borrow. And also, my house is very haunted. Also, maybe some salt and some silver bullets. Thank you.
Also, this is Zadok. He's going to come live with you now.
Hello, I'm Zadok. Hello, I'm Zadok.
But James Johnson and his wife, who in this story goes by the name James Johnson's wife, decided to come on over and spend the night. The Bells expected to be a quiet evening, with this pesky entity being cool. But it's not. The Bell Witch has zero cool.
Wow, because even, just about anything that you're like, wow, my computer's not working right now. Let me take it to someone and show it to them. And as soon as you show it to someone, it, functions properly. And you're like, I swear, when no one else was around, it was broken. It's actually really considerate of the Bell Witch that she
piped up.
She kept it up, yeah.
I think she's nice, personally.
Both to James Johnson and James Johnson's wife.
Mrs. James Johnson, please.
Mrs. James Johnson. According to Williams's diary, Mr. Johnson was a devout Christian who read from the Bible and prayed fervently and earnestly for our deliverance from this frightful disturbance, or the origin that's caused the purpose might be revealed. But soon after we had all retired, the disturbance commenced as usual.
Yeah.
That night's events ended up with Mr. Johnson crying out, in the name of the Lord,
yeah, he was.
What or who are you? What do you want and why are you here? Which the entity responded by punching young Betsy around the face.
Oh my goodness.
Wait, he punched her in the face?
The ghost.
Oh, I thought the dude who was visiting just started punching Betsy.
Damn it, Betsy, what's happening?
This is because of you. And Zadok's just like, yes, blame her.
How old is Betsy at this point? Do we know?
12. I believe she's 12 as well at this point.
Are we going to talk about poltergeist shit? Because this is a poltergeist, right?
Yeah, we are. I know what you're saying.
What is a poltergeist versus a ghost?
So a poltergeist is, my understanding of it is actually kind of more like energy it's not an actual like spirit or a haunting. It's energy that is disturbing things. And it's often associated with young girls who are going through puberty. And it can trigger this energy that comes out and results in items being moved around the house or, weird things like what we're talking about here. That isn't actually associated with an actual ghost.
And also, this being one of the first ghost stories of the modern era, you could maybe make the argument that this is perhaps where that trope is reinforced.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Interesting. Okay.
Which sounded like a sentence that made me seem like I knew what I was talking about.
It did. Hey, is this the story that movie An American Haunting is based on?
It is.
It is, right? Yeah. I think I remember seeing that.
It was this frightful evening at the Bells that prompted the formation of a town-wide committee with the sole intent of investigating and solving the Bells' otherworldly problem. Now, I believe in the phrase that bad gas travels fast in a small town, which is from the TV show Letterkenny, which I really like at the moment, and I'm fully obsessed with. But that's not important. What's important to note is that the secret was out, and you better believe that people were excited as a possum in a bakery, which isn't from Letterkenny, that's one's just from me.
But it is delightful.
I don't know, possums kind of creep me out, but it's all right.
But imagine how happy you would be in a bakery, covered in brownies.
Oh,
I'd be pretty happy.
Got a croissant in either hand.
Oh, coked up and stuff. Oh, it'd be great.
It's icing sugar.
Okay, but I would be pretty happy in a bakery though.
Unsupervised.
It's my dream to go to a bakery and just order one of everything that I think looks good in the case.
You could literally make that dream come true anytime you want.
This is a legitimate fantasy that I have.
People came from near and far to come and get a look at the Bell's ghost, camping out on the lawn where they would see the lights and fog dart across the yard and would come into the house and ask questions, and the entity was into it, answering those questions with rapping knocks on the wall, frequently singling one person out to give a good old spectoral kick into.
Yeah.
Until finally the entity plucked up the courage to say a few words. 24 people witnessed the first words as it said, "I am the spirit of a person who was once very happy, but had been disturbed and made unhappy." That's not too bad. That's not too bad, right? That's pretty good.
Not too bad. She just seems like it's a solvable problem. Like, hey, once you make me happy again, I'll piss off, you know?
Exactly. I am the spirit of a person who was buried in the woods nearby, and the grave has been disturbed. My bones are disinterred and scattered.
Oh, okay.
That's not the worst thing in the world. That could be worse. It could be worse, right?
Oh yeah, just find the bones and put them back. It's just like a quest in a video game.
It's not too bad, and she finishes off by saying, "I've come to kill John Bell."
Oh, see? Not too bad.
It gets slightly more dark at the end.
We have established at the very, very beginning that fuck the Bells. So I'm down.
Except Betsy. Poor Betsy.
I'm Team Zadok, personally. I'm getting a shirt. It'll be on the
Team
merch store.
Zadok.
Team Zadok. Calling it right now.
This accusation of disinterred bones wasn't as far-fetched as it sounded, as some years before, while out and about around the farm, some graves were found and identified as indigenous peoples who, wouldn't you know it, young Drew and a few of his friends thought it might be a right old laugh to dig the bones up and go looking for treasure.
Oh my gosh.
God damn it, Drew.
And having brought some of those remains into the house, John Bell told them to go back out in the yard and bury them again, which I think is the exact plot to the unaired Little House on the Prairie feature film.
Yeah.
This is what made Mary go blind, actually.
Put those native bones back in the ground, Mary.
I won't, Pa. I won't. Next thing you know, struck down with blindness.
Yeah.
Gosh, that was a sad bit of that story.
So what follows are just hundreds of accounts, eyewitnesses, events, incidents, and encounters that all go to form the Bell Witch, as she was now known. Detectives of all varieties, both terrestrial and otherworldly, experts and skeptics, all attempted to crack open the case like an egg of truth, including a witch hunter who spent almost a week trying to conjure the witch with an aim of shooting it with a silver bullet out of his consecrated gun. Only that didn't work, as the man left after the incident with his horse being ridden by the ghost, so he never returned.
Whoa. The
badass.
ghost was like, fuck you, and got on the horse and rode off.
2 guns in each ghost hand, shooting up in the air, going, yeah! Like that.
I adore that image. Honestly, I'm Team Bell Witch. I'm kind of digging all this that she's up to.
But here's the thing. Team Zadok and Team Bell Witch are the same team.
Good call.
So, like, we're both in the same team here.
Well, except it's Betsy. It's Betsy's puberty hormones.
There are tales of witch captivating visitors with in-depth knowledge of their past, schools they attended, where they came from, the names of those who were close to them. On occasion, the witch would read the minds of visitors, reciting the contents of letters before they were opened, and even imitating the voices of the entire family. But one of the witch's favourite pastimes was reciting the Bible, which it knew word for word.
Of course it does.
Yeah, it even turned up at the church to impersonate the preacher, then went on to sing solos of some unknown spiritual songs to large crowds.
This sounds like just a lot of people in the town being like, I don't really like this, I feel embarrassed about this thing I did in church today. I'm just going to say that was the Bell Witch.
Yeah, right?
I thought the spirit would move me to speak in tongues, but I lost confidence in myself halfway through it.
I mean, here's the thing. They're kind of got it easy because once the entire town is like fully convinced and like camping out and seeing the Bell Witch like up in the Bell House, they can get away with anything. You know, you're in the middle of a great hymn and you just fart really loud and you're
Bell
just
Witch.
like, damn it, Bell Witch.
Damn it, Bell Witch.
Zadok, did you take the trash out? Oh, yeah, I did, but that bloody Bell Witch, wouldn't you know it?
She put it back.
One of the most famous visitors to the Bell House was General, soon-to-be President, Andrew Jackson of pistol dueling and accidental bigamy fame.
I'll be looking that up later.
Jackson already knew the Bells, as John Jr. had served with him at the Battle of New Orleans, so Jackson rode up from Nashville, along with a good old-fashioned witch slayer.
Ooh.
As their wagon neared the Bells' estate, it became stuck in place by some invisible force. The horses froze up and refused to move, and the very wheels themselves refused to turn.
Or did it just get stuck in like some mud, though, maybe?
Exactly. After what I can only imagine is a very frustrating, mildly sweaty and funny time, the voice from out of the woods told Jackson that it would see him later, and then release them.
Yeah, mud.
That night at the Bell's house, after spending hours of nothing, the voice piped up again and goaded the witch slayer to attempt to shoot her with his silver bullet. And after a quick sniff of a dead cat's tail, which isn't a saying, that's literally what the witch slayer did.
It sniffed a dead cat's tail?
Something to do with being a witch slayer means you got to sniff a dead cat's tail before you start shooting witches.
Good to know.
They're not my rules.
Well, yeah, I guess okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Why
that's
not,
how
you
it
know?
works. That's how it works.
But it turns out it was a super bad idea. The voice cried out, "Now it's my turn, you old hypocrite fraud!" before beating the witch slayer about the head and face, pulling his nose almost clean off before flinging open the doors of the house and hurling the slayer out into the night. All of which Andrew Jackson found very, very funny, apparently.
Do you know how hard you have to pull on somebody's nose to almost rip it off their face?
I know exactly how hard you have to do that.
That's incredibly upsetting. Wait, hold on, back up. You know exactly how hard you have to pull on someone's nose to rip it off their face?
So one thing I found very curious about this whole
Wait, you're just moving right on?
Oh,
You're
yeah,
not
he
gonna.
is.
Fine, you keep your secrets, Matthew Jude.
I'm just drinking a cup of coffee, hold on.
The whole cup.
So one thing I found very curious about this whole Bell Witch situation is that the witch did have some interactions with the slaves that the Bells owned. All of which are mentioned in detail in a book, The Truth Exposed.
The truth exposed.
Tonight on The Truth Exposed. It sounds sexy as well now I think about it. But they aren't. They always all end up with the different slaves being beaten up and disciplined. I'm going to read you one account to bolster my point, and this is taken verbatim from The Truth Exposed. Quote, Harry, the Bell's young houseboy, was pummeled by the witch on numerous occasions. It was Harry's business to make the morning fires before daylight, Williams writes. This is Williams from the Williams diaries, so you know. He became negligent in his duty, and father scolded and threatened him several times. But Harry continued to be late. Finally, one morning, he was later than ever. He went into the house, laid the kindling wood down, and was on his knees blowing on the coals, trying to get them to blaze, when an unseen force attacked him. John Bell heard the blows, which sounded like they came from the paddle or strip of wood being meted against the boy with full force, as he could hear Harry screaming for his life, but he could see nothing. Then Williams likes to add at the end, but Harry was never late again after that.
Oh, well, then as long as he learned his lesson, it's all right. It's
Yeah,
all
it's
right
fine.
that we beat up a kid who was not being paid for any of their work.
A young slave boy getting beaten up, but he was... I don't want to call bullshit on the whole story of the Bell Witch over one thing.
I'm ready to.
But I'm pretty sure John Bell was beating the shit out of his slaves.
Oh,
And
yeah.
blaming it on that ghost. I'd bet fucking money on the fact that John Bell was the kind of person who would absolutely beat up his whole family.
Yes.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah.
Because it was young Betsy that had some of the very worst treatment from the witch itself. She was tortured for the entire haunting. She was beaten, slapped, desperately sleep deprived. The witch attacked any man that would try to romance Betsy.
Yeah, I thought there might be a weird... yeah.
The witch destroyed her relationships, and honestly, the Bell Witch destroyed Betsy's life. And though she lived to be 82, by all accounts, it was a long and hard life. That was what I can only describe filled with sadness. But on the other hand, the witch loved Lucy, John's wife, the matriarch of the family.
Who doesn't love Lucy? I love Lucy.
Yes.
Bell Witch, you got some splaining to do.
And when Lucy's health began to fail, the witch repeated the phrase over and over again. Luce, poor Luce, I'm so sorry you're sick. Witnesses even saw that the ghost manifested hazelnuts and grapes out of thin air to feed Lucy in order for her to regain her health. And though Lucy did, the lease of life would be short.
What? Who are these witnesses that are seeing all this stuff? Just other people in the town, or are these family members?
Townsfolk.
What?
I got a theory. Continue. I got a theory.
I got a couple. Okay, keep going.
Because out of everyone, it was apparent that the Bell Witch wanted John Bell dead. And the years of torment had taken their toll on the man. One attack, an attack that both left John Bell in convulsions at the side of the road, lay him out bedridden for the remainder of his life. Though that wasn't going to be a long time. John Bell failed to awaken one morning. His prescribed medicines were missing, and one new vial of dark, smoky liquid was there in their place. The doctor, a Dr. Hobson, was the only one who brought any medicines into the house and couldn't identify the liquid that had 2/3 of the bottle missing. But someone did take credit for bringing the new drug into the house, as the witch came forth to say, "It's useless for you to try and revive old Jack. I've got him this time, and he's never going to get up again. And I gave old Jack a big dose of it last night while he was asleep. I fixed him. I fixed him.
I want him dead, Jack, and don't you come back. Don't you come back no more.
The
Want you
doctor
dead,
couldn't
Jack.
identify the liquid, but did feed some of the cat.
Matthew just ignores me most of the time now.
The doctor couldn't...
He just kept going. He's like, nope.
The doctor couldn't... I've just, trying to press on with this because I want to sing musical interlude as much as the next person. The doctor couldn't identify the liquid, but did feed some to a cat that died instantly, which, I'm sure really helped the situation.
Cat.
Yeah, I didn't think you were going to like that bit.
Seriously, that was so crap to do that.
And though it took the day, by day's end, and in the absence of the Bell Witch, John Bell was dead.
Thank God. I'm saying it.
Though, and I do find this bit quite funny, the Bell Witch did turn up again at John's funeral to ask everyone if they wanted any brandy and to sing a few songs.
Look, I know the Bell Witch is doing some nasty shit, but I like her sense of humor.
I like her. I think she's fun.
She knew how to have a good time.
She's a little spitfire.
You want to watch out for her. She'll get you. So, that's the Bell Witch story. Who's got a theory?
Oh, boy. I have a couple.
All right.
One that is not paranormal at all, which is that John Bell they're kind of related. John Bell was a real asshole and beat people up and was perhaps inappropriate with Betsy. Mm-hmm. And everything just got blamed on a Bell Witch to cover up what was actually happening. That was the only way that they could talk about what was going on, was just to call it the Bell Witch. And maybe he had some issues that caused him to also get sick or whatever. Maybe he had some mental instability. I don't know. The other thought is, if that was happening, if John Bell was being abusive and we want to go with a more paranormal theory, I think that could be what could trigger poltergeist.
Yes, I agree.
And Betsy's pain of having to deal with being molested, it manifested itself as this poltergeist energy that beat her up because she probably had some self-loathing, beat up all the people who were responsible for what was happening to her, and was able to express itself in a manner that she couldn't. She couldn't have that kind of attitude that we keep hearing people reporting the Bell Witch having. She couldn't do that, but the Bell Witch could do it. So it's a manifestation of her abuse.
I think if we're going to get on a paranormal rabbit hole, I think that would make the most sense. I agree with that. I like that a lot.
My theory is very much in line with Paula, your first theory. I think John Bell was an absolute dog shit human. I think he beat his family. I think he beat his slaves. I think there was probably something going on with him and Betsy, which is considering how much he was always destroying their relationships and stuff like that. And I think he blamed the whole thing on the Bell Witch, which is why they didn't tell anybody for like an entire year, which makes no sense to me still. I think he was just like, oh, it's the Bell Witch who keeps beating up my family and who keeps being this absolute terrible person. And then I think the entire family went like, you want to murder Dad? You want to? Zadok's like, fuck yes, I do.
I would say it is hilarious to me that with all the violence, this ghost or this spirit, this energy has already exhibited, that it chooses to kill John with just a vial of poison. Like, yeah, okay,
something incredibly corporeal.
But yeah, I think the fact that the Bell Witch apparently loves Lucy is telling that he treats his wife somewhat well, and then I think they all were like, you want to just murder him? And then, because here's the thing, we have a perfect out. We've been talking about this stupid witch for years now. Everyone in town believes it. We talking about going back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's like anyone can just blame anything in the entire town of the Bell Witch. All right, let's murder him because he sucks and he's been hiding this horrendous way he's been treating us on this witch. Well, let's turn that back on him. Let's murder him with some medicine. Let's then blame it on the Bell Witch, and then, we're scot-free. And I think that's exactly what happened.
The fact of the matter is, at this time in the world, you could kill someone, get away with it, easy.
Yeah.
That's the best thing that they had going for them.
Yeah.
There's no forensic evidence. Like,
no one's looking at fingerprints.
Yeah, someone goes like, let's give this to a cat, and the cat dies like, and that cat died too. This stuff is really bad for you.
This is super magic.
That's exactly the extent of that doctor's experience.
So there are many theories of what happened in the now torn down house, and frankly, most of them aren't very fun. So let's get into them. The first one is there is a chance that this was all a big old hoax in order to bring business and trade to the town. That would go on to be renamed Adams, Tennessee.
I certainly think that they talk about it now to try and keep the town alive, because that does not look like a town that is full of bustling industry.
Among the other trades done by members of the Bell family, one was barrel making. John Bell himself had been a cooper and made hogshead barrels for tobacco. The way that this would often work was that the barrels would be carried downriver to New Orleans on barges that would be then dismantled in New Orleans, forcing the traders in the Bell family to then ride and walk their way back to Tennessee at the end of the season.
Holy moly.
This leaves them in New Orleans, where they would have had all the time they needed to learn all the parlor tricks they needed, throwing voices, fortune telling, mentalism and hypnotism, making the whole family experts in the trade of deceit.
That is a fascinating theory. I love it's like the Von Trapp family, but like instead of like going around and performing cute little songs, it's performing little ghost tricks.
I like this theory because this may have been unrelated immediately. The fact that he kills John Bell dies, it might be unrelated because the fact it could just be a family of showmen and they could have had a secret and happy life behind closed door, and while the world saw tragedy, they may have been laughing their way to the grave/bank.
I like this. I like this one. This is fun.
I could see that.
There's like traveling performers. That's great. What a good shtick to have. Like, hey, we're going to commit to this shtick for years, and it's going to be awesome. And it totally worked.
Also, if this means that no one was actually getting abused, then that makes me happy.
That's true. It's a happier story.
I'm still going to go with that they murdered John Bell, though, because they wanted, maybe he was taking too much of the acclaim, he was just like, I thought of all this.
Oh, he was like a fucking diva as well.
I could do all this without you. You're beneath me. And so they murdered him.
Or Betsy was just like, you know what? It's time for me to be the star of this family. And maybe she just did it on her own.
I'm going to shine. I like that.
What a bitch.
Don't rain on her parade.
Well, the thing is, there are many stories of families of people who have done exactly that. They're all in a hoax together.
Yeah.
But the second theory is one that's often brought up in these situations, and that's of ergotamine poisoning.
Oh, yeah.
Ergot is a fungus that grows in cereal grains, and boy howdy, will it take you to the dreamscape of your mind and force you to see beyond the veil of sanity and stare into a demon's face.
Oh.
Essentially, the idea here is that the Bell's farm had an intruder, but it wasn't a ghost or a demon, just some fungus. Ergotism is pretty unpleasant and can make you trip out of your goddamn mind. But it could also make you trip a little bit for a really, really long time. It causes convulsions, as John Bell and many of the other family members suffered. Certainly Betsy suffered from convulsions.
Could this explain why other neighbors and other townspeople who would come to their house would also witness these things?
I want to shout something very loud that I've tried not to shout.
Do it.
You can shout it. It's okay, and you should.
Damn it, Paula! What's more important is that ergot has the capacity to invoke group manias, whereas the feelings and experiences of one person tend to be passed on to the next. One person hears a noise, the next hears a whimper, the next hears a voice, and then all of a sudden you have a demon which is singing Amazing Grace to the whole diocese. This also explains why some others witnessed things and some didn't. If I had to hazard a guess, it's not unlikely that everyone that saw nothing also brought their own food to the Bell's house.
Oh, interesting.
Therefore, not eating the tainted grain, and while the symptoms emanated from the Bell's residence, worsening and worsening. I had to call Paula because I couldn't remember the word emanating, and we had like a 5-minute conversation where we tried to come up with it.
That's awesome.
Also, I just would like to acknowledge how fucking good I am at predicting shit.
You really are. You're very good at it.
But it's true though. I mean, ergot will make you see the fucking future. It'll just make you feel the past is in your brain that's going to come out.
Okay, I love the idea of them banding together in New Orleans to learn these weird tricks. But honestly, if it's not a poltergeist, I think this is what it is. This makes so much sense to me that everyone was just tripping. And that's how you have all of these witnesses who come over and see this stuff. This is the thing. A non-paranormal explanation, to me, this is it.
Or combine them. They're so meta charlatans that they find this tainted grain and then start giving it to everyone. And then they're like, this is going to make our whole thing even better. Like, they're in on it. They're the ones distributing this tainted grain. And then they're just like giving it to Andrew Jackson. Like, hey, man, you want some cereal real quick? And he's like, I love Lucky Charms. Fuck yeah.
You are giving them so much credit. I don't think they're that diabolical. But it is a good
I mean, don't get me wrong.
story.
I'm still believe my theory that John Bell was just a piece of shit and they all murdered him. But and the entire town was just like, yeah, we'll just say it was the Bell Witch. It's fine. And so I'm more on that. But if we're going down this one, I want charlatans cereal makers.
Wait, you mean some people on a bus with an old man who disappeared and they all banded together?
I thought that was the best theory. I thought it was brilliant.
Yep.
That's because that's so funny, just being like, we can't explain this, so we just make up some random stuff so that people don't think we murdered this person.
What did we just say? It was a witch.
It was a witch, right? It was a witch, right? Everyone hated this guy. Andrew Jackson's coming. He's making a run for the presidency. We got to make sure he's dead.
Oh no, we're not that weird. That's a witch that's doing that.
That's a witch.
Oh yeah, big
don't
time.
worry. Is that mud?
That's demon puke.
Pigman. We hadn't said Pigman yet, so I need to say Pigman. Pigman, roll through.
You just have to. We are contractually obligated to say Pigman in every episode because guess who our real sponsor is?
Pigman. But here's the thing. You know what can't get tainted with ergonomic rot or whatever it's called?
There were many parts of that sentence that were wrong.
You know what can't get tainted? Coors Banquet beer can't get tainted with ergonomic rot.
Oh no, you're never going to get sick from drinking Coors Banquet. That's never going to happen.
Absolutely not.
Theory 3, in my mind, is also one that I happen to buy into. And doesn't discount the other two, but does add in some horrific details.
Oh, God.
And by happy to buy into, I mean willing. This is the worst theory in many regards. In some accounts, this theory also adds credence to that of a poltergeist haunting, given that the ages of the central characters, those being John and Betsy Bell, the haunting took place in the years of Betsy's puberty, 12 to 16, a time that throughout history, for one fucked reason or another, is surrounded by superstition and witchery. I fundamentally believe that John was a man of his time. He was also, in my opinion, most likely a fucking wretched human.
Yeah.
I believe that Bell Witch was at least in part a cover-up for the sexual abuse of Betsy by John.
Yep.
Well, you know why that time is one associated with all this stuff is because, that's when young girls are transitioning into being more like women and men. There are some men, not all. Look, I fully believe that men can be good people and can issue some self-control. But there are some men who probably get a little fucked up as they go, how do I look at this little girl who's becoming a woman and now I have weird feelings and I don't know how to reconcile that, so I'm just gonna be a bad person.
Some people of the time will just think of that as a fresh harvest coming into the fucking barn, right?
That makes me feel sick.
Yes. It's unfortunate, but that's very gross.
John met his wife Lucy while he was 32. And Lucy was the tender age of 12. Betsy was 12 when the haunting began.
God, that's creepy.
When her older sister Esther had left the house.
Oh my gosh.
A haunting that focused on Betsy, forcing suitors and boyfriends away in preference for Betsy's much older school teacher who she ended up with. I think that the voices and the spirit could have simply been the way that poor Betsy dealt with the pain and the violence and the true evil in that house, which was John Bell.
Yeah.
And perhaps, with the help of the slaves that were also subject to that abuse in the house, they one day, when John was at his weakness, took advantage of the situation and poisoned him.
Yep.
So this is basically exactly what I said.
Yes, but I fucking wrote it down 2-3 days ago.
And saying, damn it, Nick, isn't as normal.
Also, I would like to point out, I did say this earlier. Also.
Well, I think there's like multiple parts of this thing, right? I think that it could very well have been ergot poisoning.
Yeah.
I think that's I would be very surprised if there wasn't some level of ergot poisoning going in. I also think that Betsy could have been displaying symptoms that were possibly a snap in her personality. I wouldn't want to diagnose her, but a snap in her personality to disassociate herself with the abuse that she was probably suffering. And I think that that John Bell was probably beating up everyone in that house, as well as the ergot poisoning. And I do think that they probably banded together, whether it was Betsy and some of the slaves, or it was the family en masse who all decided we need to get rid of John Bell. He suffers this convulsion attack on the side of the road, which is a symptom of ergot poisoning. And while he's at his weakness, they think, let's fucking kill him.
Yeah.
You just take him out.
Because even though the Kirbys, who are the current residents of that house, will tell you that the hauntings never stopped, the tale of the Bell Witch certainly closes a chapter when John Bell dies.
100%.
It does return. You know, it's after John Bell's dead that one of the suitors is pushed away, perhaps. But so much of this is left to letters from the family, is left to hearsay and talk about what happened, and people coming up with theories from old deeds and old land disputes and stuff. Because we didn't even get into the whole situation with Kate Batts, who was some believed was the actual who'd sent this evil spirit in because of a land dispute and all this kind of stuff. There's so much to go on and talk about with the Bell Witch. I mean, there's a whole modern era of the haunting. We didn't even go into the cave in this whole story because this specific story is all in the house, and I think it's all surrounds John and Betsy, which is very unfortunate.
Yes.
It could be a really fun story, but I think I don't think it is that.
Yeah, it's probably not. It's probably not.
But if you do buy into the whole poltergeist thing, as you say, Paula, I do believe that if that's the case, then there's probably enough abuse and pain and evil going on in this house to invoke all manner of things.
It's one of the, if we're going the supernatural route with it, I totally believe in that one.
Yeah.
Like that, I think that's the most plausible one.
If this is supernatural, it is a poltergeist triggered by this.
Big time. But we did also watch a funny documentary that we can talk about for 2 minutes.
We did watch a funny documentary. Oh my gosh, it was...
It was fine.
I heard the phrase, whoa, bro, multiple times during it. It was great.
Whoa, this is insane.
There was lots of bang in here.
They set up these light things in this documentary, which are like they go off and flash when something, it's like when there's energy around it. But I think they probably also flash when a bug lands on it.
I have never seen a ghost hunting show that has had so much evidence in it. Like, and I've watched my share of ghost hunting type shows, and normally it's like maybe you're lucky if you got one piece of evidence from it, is like as much as they're willing to do. But this particular show.
Well, honestly, the way that they were acting was like there was a gas leak on the property because they all kind of thought they were in a portal for part of this show.
Yeah.
Literally said the words, I think we were in a portal.
Yeah.
It's
I believed every
ridiculous.
moment of it. Just want to put it out there.
If there was no ergot, I'm going to suggest some kind of natural gas leak.
Dude, that ergonomic ergot, dude.
Just, you're not using the words right. It's fine.
Whoa, this ergot, dude, hit me straight right in the dome, dude. I went and did some sweet peyote, then I did some ergot right afterwards, dude.
Can we also take a moment to acknowledge the other documentary that we watched?
I thought you were going to bring this up.
Yeah, I'm gonna. When this episode comes out, I will on our Instagram. Go to our Instagram because I'm gonna have a picture of this. So, as some of you know, if you've listened to all of our episodes, I went to school in the North Carolina mountains.
Yeah.
And in Boone, North Carolina, at Appalachian State University, and our mascot is the Mountaineer, and this particular character is named Yosef, and he looks an awful lot like somebody interviewed in one of the documentaries we watched for today's episode. And I've done a little screen grab, and I'm like, oh, this is where the idea for the way the Mountaineer looks came from. Literally this man. So I'm gonna put that up on our Instagram, so y'all keep an eye out for that.
Pretty exact. Yeah.
I thought it was a bit of a stretch, but then I saw the screen grab and I thought, yep, that's
It's
him.
basically exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
If Jim Henson had to create a puppet of
this
that fella,
person.
that's what you get.
Yeah.
That's the case of the Bell Witch.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Death by Monsters. It's a real pleasure to have you here and let our voices just trickle into your ears. I've made it weird.
You've made that
A little bit
so...
weird. It's a little bit weird now. Just listen to our voices trickle into your ear.
You can follow us on all the social medias. We are on Twitter at DeathXMonsters. We are on Instagram at Death by Monsters Podcast. We're on Facebook at Death by Monsters Podcast. We have a lovely little community happening there, so come and join us. If you have a home strange story you would like to share with us, something weird that has happened to you, especially Matthew really wants a story about a treasure map,
I would
please
fucking love a story
Yeah,
about treasure
I
map.
hear ya.
It'd be so cool.
email it to us at deathbymonsterspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to have your story and perhaps feature it on an upcoming Home Strange.
I'm on Tinder now, which is a new thing I'm doing. Just search, if you can search Tinder, you can't swipe until
You see me.
until you find Zadok Bell. I'm there. I'm dressed as a Mennonite. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Good.
Checks
Great.
out.
Good. So
Pretty sexy.
Just we're gonna get Matthew Jude is a sex machine. So
Yep.
Let's please not. Let's not start this
Oh,
again.
we're starting it again. It's a real hashtag.
hey, also if you are enjoying this podcast, something that you could do that would be a huge help to us is just tell everyone you know. Tell your
Every
friends. Tell
person.
your enemies. Make their life better. Spread the word. It really helps us grow as a podcast. Also, if you want to leave a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to listen, that is also actually hugely helpful, and
Yep.
we appreciate all of you who have already done that.
Thank you so much. It's really is the best way to help the show out.
Yeah.
So we totally appreciate it. If everyone just tells one person, that will be...
That's how we beat
it?
the Nerdist.
Dumb Nerdist!
Well, we're going to let all of you lovely listeners get on with the rest of your day. Thank you so much again for listening to Death by Monsters. Bye!
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Oh, Jesus Christ.